It's time to lock in. We're talking SEC, college football, and more. This is AP as we see it.
I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I'm all about that action. I said I'm all about that action.
I'm AP Stedham from LA, Lower Alabama. This is AP As We See It, a weekly syndicated 1 hour show discussing the Southeastern Conference, college football, and the national scene and other sports. Welcome to another edition of AP As We See It. We'll have our visual broadcast on our YouTube channel at AP As We See It, where the audio is on the Spotify at AP As We See It, and then also on 20 plus radio stations around the Southeast. You can check your local listings, and those are broadcast on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, depending on your station's choice. So we'd also like to direct people to our social media platforms on Facebook, on the Instagram account, and also the X account. So we're under at AP As We See It, and also have my personal one at AP Stedham as well. So we have those links to all our broadcasts and all the events that we cover, the interviews we've conducted the last couple of weeks, and we've been very busy. First, we were at the Orange Bowl in Miami, and when that game was over, we headed out to Phoenix for the Fiesta Bowl, and then the very next day, we had to get up early in the morning and fly from Phoenix to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl. And this week, we'll be traveling down to Miami once again for the College Football Playoff National Championship game. But please check out our YouTube channel for all the interviews that we've conducted with the players and the coaches. And we ran into some interesting people along the way, and some of the excitement after the game as well. We'd like to make mention of our sponsor, Greer's Markets, 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, serving the Gulf Coast and beyond. They have Lucy's Famous Recipes and her online book that you can buy as well. Remember, family, friends, and football, that's a winning tradition at Greer's. You can score big savings and with the fresh produce and all the other items that are available, the meats, and you can have your game day spreads ready by shopping at Greer's. And if you can't make it down to Greer's, one of those 29 locations, you can go to Groceries to Go and have that delivered to your home, your office, the venue of your choice. They have the coloring contest for the children. They have the weekly online ads, and remember all the special occasions, the holidays, the anniversaries, all the big events at your home or the parties that you like to celebrate with your family and friends. You can shop at Greer's, and remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. We'd like to take a look back at some of the games we covered. We're going to go to the Fiesta Bowl because we already discussed that Orange Bowl, I think, last week. But the Fiesta Bowl, just a few observations. When we're always discussing that Ole Miss, and Ole Miss was on the short end of that score. They played Miami out of the Atlantic Coast Conference. It was 31-27, and it came down to a third down play. If they just held on the third down, Miami probably would have kicked the field goal, went into overtime. But as we stated, we thought Ole Miss had an excellent chance because we believed in their offense. We believed in Ole Miss's ability to score, specifically because of Trinidad Shambles, the transfer from Ferris State. He's an exceptional player, was consistent all through the year. Nobody really shut him down. And he, like I said, he put up 35 and 39 points against Georgia. And he's able to put up 27 against Miami after a slow start in the first half, where it took him, I think they were maybe 0 for 7 on third down, so they got moving and shaking. But the defense had to hold one more time. We always say 1 or 2 more possessions for Ole Miss, and we'd really feel good about that team if their defense was just slightly better. But they weren't able to hold off the Miami Hurricanes, who are a hot team right now with Carson Beck at quarterback. He ran in for that winning touchdown on that third down play, a short distance, 3 or 4 yards, and they were able to win that ball game and proceed to the College Football Playoff National Championship game. So once again, the SEC, the third straight year, they won't be in the championship game. So that's beginning to trend, and I think the cachet has all but vanished with the SEC, I believe, with the third straight year not making the national championship game. And that's something that the SEC will have to face in the coming years. They're going to be playing 9 games, be some extra losses amongst those teams. So all the time when they're professing to have beyond the 4, let's say, qualifiers for the college football playoff with the 12 teams, and they're looking to have five. I'm not sure if that's the sentiment among the selection committee members, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. The SEC 4-10 in their bowl games, and just remember that was a record of 4-10 in the bowl games, and two of those victories, one was by Ole Miss over Georgia, and Alabama beat Oklahoma, both members of the SEC. So really, they had a win by Ole Miss over Tulane, and Texas beat Michigan. So all the other teams were not able to come up with a victory. So that's really mystifying when you're proclaiming to be the best conference and you're in the postseason play. And remember, not all the teams have their complete rosters. We understand, but it's going to be publicized, win, lose, or draw. If if you win, you would love to say that you're 10-4, but the SEC right now, this bowl season, playoff season, 4-10. So I think that, as I say, that cachet that has been established over time for decades, I think it's vanished. That's the word I would use. I just don't think it's there anymore for the Southeastern Conference to make those claims. In the Big Ten now, for the third straight year, they have one of their teams in the championship, and that's the undefeated Indiana team. And I keep stating this, and that's no secret. I think that's the most sensational story that I've ever witnessed, to have a football team in the bottom tier, literally the bottom of college football programs through the history of time. And they were, I think it was on 42%. Here you are undefeated. They could be 16-0. And here's another little factoid for you. Of the two revenue generating sports, the last undefeated basketball team was 1976, Indiana. Indiana was undefeated, and I think they were, I mean, it might have been 32-0, and the football team could be 16-0 if they were able to defeat Miami in the college football playoff national championship game. So that's just a little factoid that if it comes true in this century, the modern era, uh, Indiana has an undefeated basketball team and an undefeated football team, and they'll be the only school with that type of designation. But anyhow, so the Fiesta Bowl, like I said, Ole Miss, a little bit better defense, and I think Pete Golding over time in the coming years will probably have a better defense. I think because that's his forte, and if he can keep that offense moving along, scoring about 35 points a game, 30 plus points a game, I think Ole Miss is a team to be reckoned with down the road. We'll see how Pete Golding functions as a head coach. So anyway, and then the Peach Bowl, we were at the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Very excited. We had to get on the plane, as I told you. Indiana just demolished Oregon, 56-22. Now, a point I want to bring up about this Oregon team: good coach. They won a lot of games, but for 2 straight years, I've been at their bowl game when they played Ohio State, which they had beaten by a point, in the Rose Bowl, and I'm being facetious, I guess, but I think it was 35-0 in warm-ups. Oregon was no match. They never guarded Jeremiah Smith at all, and the other receivers. So they got blown out after beating uh, Ohio State in Eugene. And then again this year, they lost by 10 points in Eugene to Indiana. But then they went to the bowl game, and it wasn't even a contest. The first play of the game, of course, Dante Moore was intercepted. It was a pick six. So the final score is 56-22. It probably could have been 70 if Indiana wanted to be that many points. But anyhow, so I have a question mark for Dan Lanning. Yes, he wins a lot of games. His teams have been in the playoffs a couple of years, but how can you play a team twice and you're slaughtered the second time for 2 straight years? Something is not right in their preparation, and he'll be the first one to tell you that he's going to have to examine and analyze the way he gets his team ready to play a team that he competed against, and it's in their own conference. So that's strange. I know the Oregon fans, they're perplexed about it, I'm sure. In the Peach Bowl itself, I think it was probably 80 to 90% were all Indiana fans. I mean, it was red everywhere with blotches of green. So, but Oregon, good program, but they're trying to move past the being annihilated in their college football playoff games. I mean, just trying to make it competitive. So they have to make that next move. But anyway, Ole Miss representing the SEC very well, beat Georgia, redeemed themselves against a team they lost to in Athens, and they moved on to play in Miami. They came up slightly short. Defensively, they didn't have enough on that side of the ball to just keep Miami from scoring or just have them score a field goal to tie the game, or whatever went into overtime. Who knows? But Trinidad Chambliss, he's like I said, magical is the word that I used throughout the season about him. He was tremendous. So, but anyway, our guests we're going to be in segment 2 and 3. We're going to have our friend of the show, John Garcia Jr. John's been on the recruiting trail for many years, and he's venturing out to some other projects as well. So we're going to discuss that transfer portal, which we know has changed the landscape of college football dramatically. And just mentioned the word Indiana. Uh, First 2 years of Kurt Signetti, people are looking for a huge turnaround. He did it in year one in the play. Indiana, that's a history. You can't change it. They're in the first two playoffs. And all these other teams with blue bloods and a lot of money, they were nowhere near had a chance to make the playoffs. So Indiana, that's why it's such a remarkable story to me. I keep dwelling on. But anyway, we're going to be right back after these messages with our friend, a friend of the show, John Garcia Jr., to discuss the transfer portal. We'll be right back after these messages with AP as we see it. Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greer's.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. And we're back with AP as we see it, and we have a very special guest, a longtime friend of the show, John Garcia Jr., a national scout with Prospex X. Welcome back to AP as we see it, John. Great to have you.
Always good to be on with you, my friend.
John, I want you to explain right up front to the folks what is your assignments now, because I know you've been into this recruiting a decade plus, I know for sure.
Yeah. Getting the grays in the beard for sure, AP. Yeah, year 15 for me in the recruiting game, media side, scouting side for most of it, but now we are on the player representation side. So still scouting, leading the group at Prospex and talent identification, and trying to help these guys maximize their value along the way. So a new challenge, but certainly a familiar one in this new and kind of wild age of college football.
Sounds like it's a great fit for you, John. Really happy for you. That's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. John, has anyone come up to you and said, I am so thrilled that my team can acquire talent every year so that we have a chance to maybe elevate ourselves from 8 wins to 10 wins? Has anybody said that to you?
Not in those exact words, but look, it's even in that regard, it's a different game. I mean, just look at the national title game, two very different paths on a roster management standpoint, development and strong evaluations on the Indiana side, in addition to considerable experience. And then the Miami side, built from a relentless recruiting attitude, transfer portal attitude, inside out, like the head coach Mario Cristobal. So this is a clash of culture in some sense, but it shows there are expanding paths to this point, which really didn't exist before either the expanded playoff or the player empowerment NIL era, or perhaps the combination of the two. So it's going to be fascinating to see, Monday night, but also going forward. How much more of this are we going to see? Who's the next Indiana, or who's the next Miami to return to prominence? I think both are equally fascinating and equally possible going forward.
John, I have yet to have one person come up to me and said they love the transfer portal. Everyone has been on the exact opposite side. And I'm trying to think, wait a minute, your team can improve every year to have a chance to contend. And John, I can't figure this out. And 50 years ago, way before you, but when they started the free agency in professional sports, baseball, basketball, football, people did not like the players receiving the money. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. So you would rather have it all in the owner's bank account instead of the players? I just can never fathom and to this day, I don't understand the universities, they're paying coaches 13, 14, you're probably going to get to 20 million very quickly. Coordinators, 2 million, probably going to 3, who knows. You're paying athletic directors 1, 2 million, but you don't want the player to receive a dime. I just don't understand that perspective, John, because those are the people below, and they're trying to elevate into a new stratosphere and be self-sufficient for their set for them and their families as well. Not that they need to give all the money to the families. I'm not saying that, but they're trying to um, help their future.
Right. People are resistant to change. It's in life, in sports, in culture. Any change that feels like a big deal is going to come with resistance. And look, NILs come with a ton of bumps and bruises, right? The regulation question, the salary cap question. I mean, heck, eligibility has become its own fight in the sport. Guys are applying for their seventh year of college, because hey, there's money to be made. So there's certainly consequences, to this change, but overwhelmingly, the majority of the change has been positive. Viewership's as strong as it's ever been. Interest is as strong as it's ever been. And that player movement has captivated the sport just as much as the games have. I mean, we've seen the last 2 years where there's almost a feeling like the transfer portal and that player movement is as big or bigger a storyline than the ongoing college football playoff itself, right? So just that thought has really, piqued the interest in college football to where it is at the forefront of the national conversation. And that wasn't always the case, right? When it was viewed purely amateur, purely as a minor leagues, for the NFL, it didn't have that clout, but it is getting to that point as it's more professional, financially, to where, the interest is as high as it's ever been. And that's something that, you can't ignore. And that comes with more dollars. It comes with more attention. So naturally, those issues are going to create and compound more issues thereafter. But the principle of it is certainly good for the sport, good for the game. We're seeing great players willing to come back an extra year as opposed to bolting to the NFL because, yeah, we can compete and maybe get back to the mountaintop, but also, be taken care of off the field, simultaneously before making that big leap, to the NFL. So I think there's a lot of good that has come with this, but obviously there's some concerns along the way. But all that change certainly will rub people the wrong way until they zoom out and realize the sport, could be in as good a shape as it's ever been.
Yeah, John, I think you made a great point. The elite players are coming back, and then the ones that are on the cusp, they're not leaving. There's no way they're leaving because they're being paid. So I think that's a great point that you brought up. And scorecard vendors are reaping the benefits, John.
Ain't no doubt.
Right, right. So, but John, on this transfer portal, uh, the other issue I wanted to bring up with you is I think it's maybe 4,000 or so. That you probably have a better number that are in the transfer portal. What percentage, John, do you think will be left behind? They won't get an offer, or they'll be in flux.
Yeah, this is another, collateral damage of the player movement, right? There's varying levels to why a player will go into the portal, and there's varying levels as to what the options are coming out of the portal. So of course we see these crazy numbers, Brandon Sorsby and Sam Levitt, Ty Simpson getting offered over $6 million. Jordan Seaton's in the portal. Money's a factor for some of these major moves. But on the flip side of that, yeah, kids are getting cut. Rosters are getting trimmed the old-fashioned way, and the portal allows for more of that. So as much as someone might be hollering about the money pushing players to make their move, well, it's also pushing colleges to get rid of players or ask them to leave sooner rather than later. So that group of player in the portal, AP, is less likely to find a destination on the other side at the same level. You might have to drop a level. You might have to wait a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, the numbers are staggering at an all-time high in the portal, which means we're going to get an all-time high of guys who don't find a home on the other side, which is certainly unfortunate. Some of these guys might have played their last down of college football without knowing it. So I think, again, the calendar, the regulations that have to come with it, and the changes that have to come with it should keep those players in mind, even though the storylines won't necessarily go there. It is a major issue with the transfer portal itself. There are only so many spots on a college football roster. So yeah, the numbers say there's a big chunk, hundreds of players, maybe even into the thousands, will have jumped in the portal and won't have a place to opt out of after, it closes, and they have to, either, change course, with their development, or wait until spring, wait until perhaps even the 2026 season itself to try to find a home, at the collegiate level. So there's certainly casualties to all of this player movement. And it's not just on the young people involved. A lot of the coaches, administrators, personnel people, they're having tough decisions to make as well. And unfortunately, players are a part of that bottom line just as much as the money is.
John, about a minute and a half, I want to broach one subject. 9 games for the red shirt, the American Football Coaches Association approved. I guess that will be implemented this coming season. So that's a 9-game red shirt instead of what was it 4, right?
4, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that, John? We got a minute or so.
Yeah, well, I think you're seeing another casualty of the movement, right? If you are a player on the fringe who maybe feels that there are greener pastures elsewhere, and you get to that 4th game and you're in the locker room, you might get a call from an agent saying, "Hey, maybe we shut it down and we preserve this so we can maintain that eligibility going into the next season." And that certainly, from a PR standpoint, creates a lot of negativity, right? And again, forces the coach's hand to some degree. But if it's 9 games now, that question doesn't pop up. You're allowed to be a little bit more conventional as a player and still have the movement option at the end of the season. 9 games, much more reasonable a number. I've seen a lot of proponents of, hey, 5 years to play 5 is good enough, as opposed to 5 years to play 4. But now this kind of bridges the gap between those two arguments just a little bit more. But either way, we shouldn't see guys 7-8 years in trying to get eligibility. Those guys can move on to the real world. But I do agree that more games for that flexibility is a good thing for the sport, players included.
Hey, we're going to be right back with another segment of AP as we see it after these messages with our guest, John Garcia, National Scout for Prospex X. We'll be right back after these messages with AP as we see it. Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greer's.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. And we're back with another segment of AP as we see it, and our very special guest, friend of the show, many years, John Garcia Jr., National Scout, Prospects X. John, we just wanted to finish the subject matter of the redshirting. We both believe it's 9 games of regular season, because that would be quite unfair if someone plays the 9 games and then you shut them down for a league championship or something of that nature. So we'll go with that until we learn otherwise.
Yeah, imagine. You imagine a kid who's 7-8 games into their freshman year on the field, and now your team makes the playoff, and the coach is like, "Hey, let's slow you down so we can maintain another year of eligibility." Yeah, it's got to be regular season, because that's totally unfair. Yeah, some teams are playing a lot of games these days.
Oh my gosh, 16 for Indiana, possibly, right?
Right.
But and I forgot Miami's number, probably 16-2 or something. But John, I wanted to bring up the fact that this has to be a fabulous night to be of Cuban ancestry. Number one, Fernando Mendoza from South Florida, Cuban ancestry, and then Mario Cristobal, the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes. So, and I'm sure there's other players too on the team. Those are the 2 most famous at this point. But and to have it in the city of Miami, Tampa is another place, of course, but Miami, the hometown of the Miami Hurricanes, University of Miami Hurricanes. John, I want you to speak to that subject. And also, John, the hometown hero, Fernando Mendoza, returns to Miami to play the hometown team. So if you're not a Miami graduate or fan, I think you're a winner either way,
Oh yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. You couldn't write these storylines in a movie, right? There's so many that come to mind here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start with the Cuban American part of this. Like, look, my mother came to this country at 4 years old from Cuba. I grew up in Miami. I mean, this is you just know of Mario Cristobal if you grew up in that community, right? He is
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
legend in general, but a really a folk hero, on the Cuban side of it, especially in the sport of football, which obviously doesn't have a lot of rich Cuban history. I say yet because we
Yes.
do now have a Heisman winner in Fernando Mendoza, who happens to be coming to town. Just unbelievable, an unbelievable storyline. Like you said, taking place in Miami, ultra fitting on every front. Even the halftime show, Pitbull, the most famous Cuban artist that is alive, he's going to be performing too. I mean,
Oh my.
it is like it's nothing we've ever seen in the football community. Certainly a long time coming, for those of us who are football lifers from South Florida. But it really should be viewed as a celebration of progress, inclusion, and history as well, because it's something that you probably won't see ever again, just by default, right? A Cuban descendant head coach going for a national title against a Heisman winner with the same background. I mean, just unbelievable to even consider that. So certainly a big celebration. I mean, Mendoza's mom played tennis at Miami. He grew up right down the road, from the university as well. So yeah, for Miamians, it's a win-win, right? In some regard. And ironically, all these paths were also crossed at Columbus High School, where Cristobal went, where Mendoza also went. So just unbelievable storylines built here. I was told Columbus High School has canceled classes for Tuesday because it's like we're all in on this game because all of our great alumni are participating. And either way, there will be a national title, going back to that great high school in South Florida. So yeah, just an unbelievable day to consider. And the way the game is shaping up, and I know we'll talk about this, it should be a pretty great game too, on top of all of these storylines, right? Clash of culture on the field, how these teams were constructed, star power, all of those things. So yeah, it is there's always intrigue. It's the freaking national title game, right? We shouldn't have to build it up, but personally, this one will carry a little bit more weight, and to have Miami host all of that, makes it that much more special for a lot of people involved. And I think there's gonna be a lot of tears, at the end of that one way or the other. So it should be really fun on Monday.
And I think we just want to make mention, I guess, Fernando's dad played, I guess, high school ball with Mario.
With Mario, yeah. They thought both of the Mendoza brothers would be quarterbacking at Miami. That is how they would have drawn it up. Didn't work out that way. And look, it wasn't Cristobal. Previous administration there at Miami, they were talking walk on. They were maybe talking transfer portal. But look, it's going to work out in a different way. So fantastic to see, how that will play out. They know each other extremely, extremely well. So yeah, again, the crossovers, the storylines sort of write themselves in this one.
John, I want to have you take a moment. When did you know about Fernando? Maybe you saw him in high school, and he was going to Yale at the time, and then last minute University of California. I saw him play there. That's why I fell in love with him. I told people about him, and I told the coach about him. We have the best quarterback coming in July. But just take us back to when you first saw him. We have about 6 minutes to go. 5-6 minutes.
Yeah, just he was sort of the same height he is now, that big kind of stringy build, coming out of high school. You mentioned committed to Yale. The grades were always there. The gravitational pull of a leader at quarterback was always there for him. But look, and Fernando would tell you this, the throwing motion wasn't great. The numbers weren't great in high school. This wasn't a kid that was throwing for 50 touchdowns a year. At Columbus High School, it was very run-based and defensive-based on that roster, and they had some great players around Fernando, much like he does now. So he wasn't asked to throw the ball 40, 50 times a game. It was really a game manager, don't turn it over type of scenario. And I think that affected his recruitment a certain way. But man, how about the case for development? Goes to Cal, as you mentioned, gets that offer, I think the morning or the night before National Signing Day, develops at Cal for a few years. And it becomes this elite portal prospect that goes to Indiana. But even then, this wasn't a no-brainer. This wasn't a guarantee to see Mendoza at this level, certainly not at a Heisman or national title type of level. But all the kid has done, I should say, is put his head down and work. And that was really what he was always known for, back in the day in playing ball in Miami against elite competition. It was always about, getting there and showing off that preparation more so than just out athleting anybody on a Friday night. So very fitting for him to be the opponent in this scenario for the Miami, fairy tale story to come true. So one of the, again, you understand both sides of this equation, kind of all the way through. It's like a movie where you watch the hero and the villain and you kind of understand, the angle, the motive for both. Right. So it's going to be, again, just an amazing culmination of what college football should be all about.
John, about a couple minutes, 2.5 minutes. John, a couple keys for you in this game for both teams.
Well, I think on the Indiana side, it's pretty simple. Just keep doing what you've been doing. You got to stay efficient, and those guys even move efficiently. It feels like, right? You can't turn the ball over. You certainly can't get into a penalty-driven, emotional matchup with Miami. So you got to stay steady. You got to stay ahead of the sticks in that regard. I think for Miami, we saw Miami win with not their best effort against Ole Miss, right? Penalties, missed opportunities with turnovers, a lot of things that could have shut the door in that game didn't happen. And it allowed for, a late drive that could have changed everything against Miami. Those opportunities have to be capitalized on against Indiana. First of all, because they won't become as frequent, right? Those dropped interceptions, they will not be available at the same rate against Fernando Mendoza. And I think, from a penalty standpoint, Miami has to be way more disciplined to have a shot in this game. Indiana does not hurt themselves. Miami is a little more Jekyll and Hyde in that regard. But if they can figure that part out, I do think from a talent perspective and a trench perspective, Miami has some advantages in this game. But nobody has been able to expose Indiana for 4 quarters. So I think it's going to be fascinating for each side. Even Mendoza, how is his emotion, right? We talk about all these storylines and he's known for locking in and preparing sort of Tom Brady-esque, but could this be the one scenario that allows his heartstrings to be manipulated just a little bit, even just a little bit, playing back at home at the stadium he thought he would be playing for the other side, for 4 years, So I think there are fascinating storylines each way. And I think it creates maybe a more narrow margin than certainly Las Vegas is expecting. And certainly, more narrow than what we saw last week with Indiana just dismantling Oregon.
John, just say this in the wrapping up. I noticed that James Brockmeyer, the former University of Alabama center, didn't play much there. He's like a University of Texas legacy. But he's 295, about 6'3". Everybody else, I think, is maybe 6'5", 325 above. They're huge on the line. I didn't check Indiana, but I know they have a good line, obviously. But I noticed that about Miami because I was at that game as well.
Yeah, nobody's been able to get in front of these guys, right? Miami has run the ball on every opponent and controlled the clock because of that fact. Indiana doesn't allow that typically, but I also think they haven't faced this type of attack. Size-wise, yes. Scheme-wise, I don't think so. Not with bigger backs coming downhill. So I do think that'll be a big factor. And again, if Miami can stay disciplined within that, no holding calls, no jumping off sides. And I do think they can play that type of game. That will be their best shot, because I don't think either team wants their quarterback dropping back 40 times to try to win this one.
John Garcia Jr., National Scout, Prospex X. John, we love to hear from you all the time. And stay well, my friend. And we'll be right back with another segment of AP as we see it. Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greer's.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. And we're back with AP as we see it, segment 4. We'd like to thank our guest, John Garcia Jr. He's always a delight to have on the show because he's so knowledgeable and has been following the sport of college football for many, many years, and at the level where he knows those players when they're very young, probably when they're starting freshman in high school and beyond. So John has a grasp and a perspective that's very unique. So we want to thank John Garcia Jr. for being a guest on the show today. We wanted to thank our sponsor, Greer's Markets, 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the Gulf Coast and beyond. And we want people to check out their groceries to go if they can't make it down to one of their 29 locations so they can celebrate all the special occasions, the holidays, the anniversaries, watching all the college football games, the college basketball games will be coming up soon with the SEC and other places as well. And check the online weekly ads. And remember, family, friends, and football is a winning tradition at Greer's. You can score big savings on fresh meats, produce, and more, and get ready for those game day spreads. So remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it. So let's move on to the rest of the show. I noticed something. I was at the bowl game in Atlanta, and I'm a big proponent of the bands and the cheerleaders and the dance squads and all the pageantry that is mentioned with college football. But one thing I noticed, and maybe I didn't realize this, one of the bands came onto the field, and the opponent's fans in the stands, overwhelmingly, they were booing the band. And I just thought that has to be a new low in my book, to boo the other team's band. Everyone likes to hear music, whether it's the other team's fight song, their alma mater, or just they're playing the songs for the halftime. But this is before the game, and they booed the band. I was very disheartened and disappointed in those fans. I won't mention who it is, but I was just caught my attention. And maybe it's been going on for quite a long time, but I just thought, how low can we go? How low can we go? But anyhow, one of the important decisions that's going to be made upcoming, they're going to be in Miami, all the commissioners and the college athletic administrators. They're trying to figure out the next model for the college football playoff. And we know that the SEC and the Big Ten, they have total command. The other conferences acquiesced and allowed them to make this decision. So, but if they can't make a decision, I think it's by January 22nd or 23rd, they're going to revert back to the 12-team college football playoff. But there's a couple models out there. There's 16, I think, which was the SEC preferred. That's the 5-11 model. The 5 top conference championships earn the automatic berth, and you have 11 teams at large, but you rank those conferences accordingly. Nobody um, gets a bye unless they're ranked in that top 4. And then the other model, they're pushing for the Big Ten, and what's been floated around is 24. So they're a lot. They want to have maybe 16 this upcoming season to the 2026 season, and then they're hoping the SEC agrees to have 16 and then move to the 24. Well, I know that the SEC, like I said, the the shine on their previous years is lacking right now, and I think the cachet has been spent by losing these college football playoff games. And last year was double digits, all 3 teams that were eliminated, and this year they didn't make it to the championship game. So, excuse me, I think that the luster and the shine from the SEC is dull right now. So I don't know if the SEC wants to bank on these automatic qualifiers because, as I said in the first segment, in the minds of the selection committee, whether it's conscious or subconscious, I don't think they're going to believe that the SEC has the strongest teams overall. So um, those automatic qualifiers, that's starting to look pretty good, I think, from the SEC perspective, because all these teams have the millions of dollars to pay these players, the NIL money, and the transfer portal is so active. You can acquire talent, and we always say it's professional sports right now. So just because you have the millions, who should get your millions? You have to evaluate that talent ongoing throughout the season to be ready to strike in December and January when the portal opens in January 2nd through the 16th this particular year. But I just think that the SEC, they might reconsider uh, backing away from the automatic qualifier system. But I don't know if it's going to get to 24 or they're going to settle for the 16 or some type of compromise with the Big Ten because those are the only two conferences making this decision. So, but anyhow, it's something to consider. And if they move to all these more teams, they'll probably move the Army Navy game back 1 week to so they can start playing earlier in December for these playoff games. Probably more games at home, more games on the site of the um, college football teams that earn the berth. But anyway, let's see if we can stop booing the band. Let's show a little class, have a little decorum and courtesy to the other team. But anyway, something I wanted to go over quickly. We're trying to do all 16 teams if we can fit this in the last minutes or so. Just looking at the SEC quarterbacks that would be available for each team. We know this situation is fluid, and we're not going to try to mention every quarterback. But we'll get quite a few. But anyway, let's start with Alabama. Ty Simpson. He looks like he's going to go to the NFL. He's not going to try to attend another school, even though he's been offered $6 million, $4 million by some other school. It looks like he's going to move on. And I would say this to Ty that, Jalen Hurts, I don't think he hurt his reputation by playing for Alabama and doing so well. And he's still beloved by the people in Alabama, even though he finished his career at Oklahoma and he graduated from Alabama. That was a goal of his. That's why he stayed. And he was loyal to the program. So if Ty Simpson wanted to move to another school, that's fine. But he's not really forfeiting the money because he's going to be paid. He's going to the NFL. So you're just switching the entity that's paying you money next year. So he's not turning down $6 million. He's going to get millions of dollars when he's drafted in the NFL. Whether it's a first round draft choice, I don't know. It takes one team, one president, one general manager to like your style of play as the quarterback, and that's what you're banking on. You don't have to be liked by every single team, all the 32 teams. But anyway, Alabama next year should have Austin Mack, Richard Jr. from Folsom High School in California. He had transferred from Washington. He's been there a while at Alabama now. Of course, Keelan Russell, the five-star freshman that came in from Duncanville High School. Austin Mack, 6'6", 235. Keelan Russell, 6'3", about 200. Arkansas, probably KJ Jackson, the redshirt sophomore from St. James High School in Montgomery, 6'4", 225. Braden Fuller, the transfer from Angelo State, redshirt senior, Division II from Texas. He's going to be there as a Lone Star Conference Player of the Year in 2024, a Harlan Hill finalist. That's like the Heisman finalist at that level. And then A.J. Hill is a Memphis reserve, their coach coming over from Memphis. So he's 6'4", 215. Looking at Auburn, we know Byron Brown. He had a sensational year, led the country, 42 touchdowns, 28 through the air, 14 through the ground. 6'3", 230, about 230 pounds, coming from South Florida. Their coach, Alex Goish, the new head coach at Auburn. And a couple other quarterbacks they have as well. Oregon State, the transfer, Tristan Tia, Lachlan Hewitt from South Florida as well, and Rice Brush is a freshman from Tampa. Florida has Aaron Philo. That's the one we're going to mention, the transfer from Georgia Tech. He's 6'2", 220. He's from Georgia, native of Georgia. Georgia has their quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, returning from Tiger, Georgia, 6'1", 215. Kentucky, Kenny Minchie, transfer from Notre Dame, from Hendersonville, Tennessee. And there's quite a few from Nashville going to be in the SEC after. Zach Calzada, the Texas A&M and Incarnate transfer. LSU will have Sam Levitt from Arizona State. He's from Westland, Oregon, 6'2", 210. And the quarterback from Elon, I don't have his name right now, but and then a late comer is Husan Longstreet from USC. He's a five-star that was on their roster this year from Corona, California, about 6', 200 pounds. Ole Miss will have Deuce Knight, a Lucedale, Mississippi native, 6'4", 217, played at Auburn this year. Mississippi State, Camario Taylor, sophomore, Macon, Mississippi, as a dual threat player. Austin Simmons will be at Missouri, a transfer from Ole Miss, 6'4", 215. Plus Matt Zollers, a 6'4", 205 sophomore from Royersford, Pennsylvania, and Nick Evers, a transfer from Yukon, Wisconsin, Oklahoma. Oklahoma will have, it looks like John Mateer will return, and they have Bo Bentley, a four-star class of 2026, dual threat quarterback from Salina, Texas. He won the state championship there in the 4A. South Carolina, Lenora Sellers out of Florence, South Carolina, 6'4", 240 will return. Tennessee will have George McIntyre. You may know that name. He had family members coach Vanderbilt and other members coach Colorado, some other teams. He's a redshirt freshman from Nashville, 6'6", 195. And Faison Brandon, a five-star freshman from Greensboro, North Carolina, 6'4", 205. We have Arch Manning with Texas, of course, at Texas A&M University with Marcel Reed, 6'1", 185 from Nashville. Quite a few quarterbacks from the Nashville area. Arch Manning, 6'4", 220 from New Orleans, of course. And then we have Vanderbilt, Jared Curtis, a five-star freshman from Nashville, Tennessee, 6'3", 225, number one ranked high school quarterback. And so those are just some of the quarterbacks that we think will be making an impact for their team, but it's a fluid situation. This week, the transfer portal ends on the 16th of January. So it's going to be interesting. And we always try to keep an eye on those quarterbacks because that's the most important position. If you pay the millions to the wrong quarterback, you are stuck. You are neutral. But it's very tough to survive and compete against all these tough teams, especially on the road when you're going to have to play defense all the time. By the middle of the season, your defense will be worn out. So you're trying to evaluate these quarterbacks and get an above average quarterback to give your chance, your team a chance to win and compete. So those are some of the observations we had, but we're going to be back. We're going to be covering the championship game in Miami. So look for all our interviews on our YouTube channel at AP As We See It. And we're going to be back next week with another episode of AP As We See It. Thank you very much. Hi, I'm AP Stedham for Greer's Markets. If you're planning a big party or for every day, shop at Greer's for delicious food, beverages, and snacks. Save time and money by checking on Greer's.com and use Groceries to Go to get your Greer's groceries delivered. Look at the weekly ad for more information. 29 locations in Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, serving the region since 1916. Remember, Greer's got it. They guarantee it.